Welcome to the Armchair Constituents, the weekly podcast about news topics. While we're not experts or academics, we do like to speak our voice freely. And keep in mind that as the facts change, so can our opinions.
We are now about to present the main attraction of our world-famous show.
All right, welcome to episode 13 of the Armchair Constituents. This is recorded, what's today's date? The 9th? Sunday the 9th, evening of Sunday the 9th. I'm Jeff. I'm here with Kramer.
Wait, are we technically episode 12?
No, this is 13. Last week's
is,
episode was episode 13. So
Sorry.
This is episode... Yeah, technically this is episode 14, but we're never releasing the monstrosity of what last week was.
Yeah, that was rough. 45 minutes of just sitting. It was like, hey, did you hear a thing happen? Yeah, I heard about that thing. All right, cool.
I'm drunk and I need a nap. But yeah, next week we'll have a third person on, our friend Brandon.
Oh, that's right, Brandon. Very exciting.
Yeah, we'll see how exciting it is. I'm just hoping it works out well.
It's been 4 hours trying to figure out why the connection keeps getting dropped. And you know what? We're just doing a regular episode.
No, Brandon has a decent internet connection. It'll be fine. But
I live
all right.
I live out in the middle of nowhere, so I don't.
Well, let's get into the updates. Two updates this week. The first one is North Korea, July 4th. We're gonna do 2 weeks worth of stuff here. We're gonna try to. But so North Korea on July 4th test launched an ICBM. I forget what it was called. The Mars something is what it translated to. But Kim Jong-un called it a gift to the United States for the 4th of July. But the big thing about this is just the distance that it traveled. Like, it reached a max altitude of 2,800 kilometers, which I believe they said the International Space Station is at 400 kilometers.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, it went up and yeah, came down. They said it could probably travel somewhere in the distance of 6,700 kilometers, which puts it well over the threshold.
Yeah, it could hit Alaska. But apparently, based off of some small documentary I watched, I think that's the greatest distance that any of their capability is at, is hitting a lot of the land mass of Alaska, at least with regards to threat.
Well, they don't have any
kind
of. They claimed like their guidance system is incredibly accurate or extremely accurate, but they don't have any satellites in orbit to actually guide these missiles. So they're essentially using the missile.
A big slingshot.
It's not. It wouldn't be accurate. That's not to say it still couldn't be destructive, but
yeah.
I don't know. I find the big thing to me is the fact that he decided to come out and say it was a gift. Just seems like a challenge. But you have Trump coming out and bitching at China essentially for not enforcing the trade sanctions. But then he had this week at the summit. It was the other day. He was coming back. He talked about how he had a great meeting with the president of China on trade in North Korea. So who knows? All you have to do is talk to him, and he just completely changes his mind. But yeah.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, it's.
Yeah, go ahead.
I just think it's one of those things that we keep hearing about missile launches, and they're engaging and being more aggressive and things like that. And I feel like it's almost like a rehashing of like, oh, their missile went 5 feet further. All right, it went another 5 feet further, and you're like, this is inevitably going to come to some kind of head. It's just a matter of when, and sitting around and waiting for it is getting incredibly anxious.
I mean, they keep testing these missiles and trying to see how far they can go, see how high they can go. I guess I should say, but I mean, they're testing distances here.
Yeah.
And now if they can put a warhead on that, and this thing can get off the ground with the weight of a warhead on it, I mean, this is pretty dangerous.
Apparently,
I don't understand why else they would be doing this. This like incredible desire to to test these things seemingly every week if they don't have some kind of intent to use them.
Yeah.
Or if they really,
I mean, I know there's still years.
actually believe that, do they really actually believe that the creation of this missile is gonna stop people from picking on them? I guess is what they think. I don't know.
Stop making political cartoons about us in the New Yorker. I mean, they're still supposed to be years off from being able to affix any type of nuclear warhead to a missile like that. It's just beyond that. It's like we said, throwing missiles with a slingshot. Yeah.
All right.
I guess they'll just keep doing this, and we'll just move on to a different topic.
So the second update. This is from last week too. So they're both from last week. These are old updates. Yeah. But so the travel ban was reinstated, partially, kind of. Yeah. I don't really know. This is your strong suit, but why don't you explain to me what exactly was put in place here?
Yes. So even the Supreme Court's kind of like, well, we don't exactly know. So basically, this is a Pyrrhic victory for both sides. The Supreme Court has agreed to hear the travel ban case next term in the fall, along with a myriad of other cases that look to be super interesting, but we're not going to discuss until they happen. But in I guess preliminary conversations about it, the Supreme Court said that the travel ban could be partially reinstated. So the 6 countries, not including Iraq because they were removed from the initial one, this is in reference to the second travel ban, if you are from one of those 6 countries and don't have a connection to the United States, you can be denied entry. And a connection can be you have a job offer, you're going to school in the United States, you have a family member. I think there's some confusion over how attached do you have to be to this particular family member. I don't think in-laws count for it, but direct and immediate family grants you entry into the United States.
In-laws count because they specifically mention son and daughter-in-law.
Okay.
It's I think grandparents don't count. It's like first generation.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I had to read it.
Yeah. I mean, but both of them.
Something happened.
Yeah, I mean, both sides get to claim that they've gotten a victory. The people that are against the travel ban get to say, "Aha, this is a really, really weakened version of your travel ban." And at the same time, Trump and supporters of the travel ban get to say, "Ha, we got our travel ban back in effect." So,
okay, so now in the fall, when the Supreme Court hears this, are they going to be hearing whether or not this specific ban should be allowed? Or is this just kind of like a holdover for them to actually vote on what travel ban the administration actually wants?
That's
it seems to me what
question.
You were saying is it sounds like the majority of the Supreme Court is, well, no, I won't say the majority. 3 justices are on the side of the administration, and then you have Kennedy, who just hasn't made his mind up yet. So the rest of them are on the other side.
Yeah, Thomas Alito and Gorsuch, those three justices, the right wing of the court, released a document basically saying, "Hey, government, we're going to side with you." And I can't remember the exact legal jargon for it, or it was more or less saying, we don't feel like there is an adequate case against the executive. We feel that they do certainly have the authority to engage in putting this travel ban into place. Whether or not I don't know which travel ban they're going to be deciding on. I don't know if it's going to be both. I don't know if it's going to be just the second one. The ruling, their allowing of its partial existence seems to be based entirely off of the second travel ban, which removed Iraq. But another big question for this is are they even going to be able to hear it? Will it be a moot point? Because the travel ban exists for 90 days, and there's 120 days suspension of the refugee program from Syria. By the time the court gets around to hearing these in the fall, that time frame can easily be up. So, it could be just, oh, hey, time frame's gone. Oh well.
Also, I mean, if they release a document saying they think the executive branch should be allowed to institute this kind of ban, then maybe that's what they're hearing. Whether or not it should be legally allowed for the president to institute this kind of ban. So if that's the case, if they're just going to rule on that matter, then maybe it doesn't matter if they're ruling on this ban, because if they make it legal for him to do so, he can just alter it.
Well, there is already legislation that was passed under Harry Truman that he vetoed. That his veto was then unvetoed by the legislative branch.
Oh, okay.
That the president does have the authority to institute restrictions on American citizens traveling to foreign places, i.e., Iran, Cuba, things like we already have, and people coming into the United States. I think that what this case is built around is religious animus. Was there religious intent? Obviously, in the first one, there's a lot of religious language talking about religious minorities. In the second one, that is removed, but at the same time, you have Donald Trump saying, we got a watered-down bill of the version he wanted, and also tweeting the potentially, seemingly contradictory statement that the spirit of the first bill exists in the second. So it looks to be very muddy. There's a lot of questions of our presidential tweets statements, and I know that we had mentioned the bill from the guy that put up like the Mar-a-Lago bill, trying to make those the case. I don't know. It looks like it's. I mean, obviously Thomas Alito and Gorsuch have more or less come out and said, "Hey, look, government has the right to do this. We don't feel like there's religious animus specifically in the second one. There's no religious language in there. It doesn't matter whether or not we like it. They're allowed to do it. There's no issue with it." And again, as I've said, I think this might be the 976th time I've said it, Kennedy's going to be a really important vote on this. So,
All right. Yeah.
basically this is going to be shelved. We probably won't really mention it again until the Supreme Court hears it in the fall and passes down some kind of decision.
Yeah, I doubt it'll come back up unless something else changes in the matter. But all right, let's move into the actual topics.
This first big giant rambling topic.
Oh yeah. Okay, so if you've been under a rock, CNN's done some stuff. Why don't you give us a lowdown of the first third of this story? I guess the actual redacted article.
I'm putting the other portion of it in now. So the first part of this CNN debacle, I guess it was 2 weeks ago. CNN released an article written by someone that I'm a fan of, Thomas Frank. That CNN then promptly pulled, and the author of it, Thomas Frank, as well as two people, I guess, that oversee Frank, all promptly resigned. Now, apparently, what this story alleged was that someone close to Trump, I guess he helped with the transition, Anthony Scaramucci, had ties to Russian banks, specifically banks that had, what's the word I'm looking for? Sanctions, that's the word. Sanctions on them by the United States government. Turns out parts of the story were inaccurate. And so Thomas Frank, Eric Lichtbau, and Lex Harris all stepped down from CNN in place of the article on CNN's website. They basically said, look, this article wasn't good enough to publish, so we're pulling it. They didn't come out and say like, hey, this was like blatantly fake, as everyone else came out and did, but apparently they didn't really go through the editorial process correctly. They were just like, fuck it, we're publishing it, let's go. And they ran with it. So some irresponsible journalism on the part of some CNN employees there. But I will say, Scaramucci was actually super cool about the whole thing. They published the initial article and he tweeted out and he was like, hey, this is bullshit. Like, this isn't true. And then they retracted it, and then he tweeted at CNN. He was like, really appreciate it. Everybody messes up. Don't worry about it.
Well, that's good.
People made hay out of that, and then there's even more hay.
Well,
with,
because we have Trump screaming
toxins.
fake news forever, and then you have CNN retract an article, and then of course, nonsense. I've been watching people post CNN memes nonstop for 2 weeks. They're terrible. They're not even imaginative, and it's just like, oh, this is hilarious. Like, no, it's not. You just think you're being political. You fucking
look
loser.
at me. I'm a politics.
I don't even like CNN when I'm sitting here. I mean, you tweeted it. It was just like,
Yeah.
I don't want to defend these people, but I'm having a knee-jerk reaction.
I hate
So-
both of you equally, but one of you is being a little more ridiculous than the other at this moment, and then CNN pulls the GIF thing, and I'm like, God damn it! I don't just.
All right, let's not get ahead of ourselves. We still got Morning Joe to get into. So that's the first half.
Yeah.
That's the retracted article. Now let's get into Morning Joe and Mika, whatever.
Mika?
her name is. Mika? Is that it?
Yuka?
Oh fuck. Anyways,
Whatever.
go for it. Let's see what they say. What happened here?
Yeah. So with this one, man, I really want to bring up the tweets proper because I had them up last time. Um, but basically, Trump and Joe Scarborough and Mika Brzezinski, who is again, it's Zbigniew Brzezinski's daughter, and he worked under the Carter administration. He's a super well respected political analyst and someone who's an expert in international affairs. Um, Basically, Donald Trump tweeted out and alleged. Let's see if I can find it exactly here. Oh yes, here's the tweet from Donald Trump. Heard that poorly rated at Morning Joe speaks badly of me. Don't watch anymore. In quotations. Then then how come low IQ crazy Mika along with Psycho Joe came to Mar-a-Lago 3 nights in a row around New Year's Eve and insisted on joining me? She was bleeding badly from a facelift. I said no. Then Trump came out and tweeted after that, watched low-rated at Morning Joe for the first time in a long time. Fake news, because it's in all caps. He called me to stop a National Enquirer article. I said no, bad show. Joe Scarborough then responded, yet another lie. I have texts from you. I have texts from your top aides and phone records. Also, those records show I haven't spoken with you in many months. Then Donald Trump, this is my favorite tweet, and this is from an article that was done on July 1st. So we're touched behind the curve, but we're really getting the gist of it. Donald Trump tweeted my favorite one of this whole debacle. Crazy Joe Scarborough and dumb as a rock Mika are not bad people, but their low-rated show is dominated by their NBC bosses. Too bad. So
Dumb as a rock Mika.
I feel like
they're
reading
not
them.
bad. They're not bad people though. They're dumb as rocks.
Not
but they're
bad?
Not bad people.
You can be dumb and still be very thoughtful. John Steinbeck wrote a whole book about it.
Hey, as long as you're not bleeding from the face. If you're bleeding from the face, I want nothing to do with you.
Yeah, it's oh my god. Okay, so also there was I read some comments by Joe Scarborough, like they did an article. I think Joe Scarborough wrote an article about it, and he's like, also not that it's anyone's business, but Mika's not had a facelift. She did have a chin tuck, but that's no one's business.
Except everyone's, because I just posted it. You need to calm down, Gawker. Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
But yeah, so let's not forget this part, because you had this whole spiel last time about leftist news getting inaccurate.
Yeah,
so go through that before we get into the last part.
Okay, so God, I feel like a preacher. So there's a great article of The Atlantic written up, basically called "Why the Left Lost Its Mind" or "How the Left Lost Its Mind." Really, the gist of the story is that this kind of puts a bit of a nice bow in conjunction with the last part we're getting into on CNN about it. Basically, the left has started to get Fox Newsy lately, more or less, and statistically, blatantly conservative media outlets, your Fox News, your Michael Savage, Mark Levine, your Breitbart, things like that, they tend to be statistically more inaccurate with regards to the information that they put out there. And the conservative media outlets had a very public shift in the late 80s through the 90s, rise of talk radio, the creation of Fox News. It was very public, but the left underwent this in a very different way. Apparently, a lot of the left's news bias started in the early days of the Bush administration. It wasn't nearly as public. A lot of it was on chat rooms, Democracy Now!, Alternet, trustworthy news organizations like that, or places where people all sit around and jerk each other off and agree with each other. So basically, the left media outlets are kind of feeding Donald Trump's ire. Places like Share Blue, or is it like New Now Next, something like that. Blatantly biased media outlets, especially on social media, have lost a lot of their journalistic integrity. It used to be that when we thought about biased media, we're looking at Fox News and we're going, oh, ha, 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 you're so bad. And we sort of disavowed conservative media, and justifiably so in some regards. But now it is creeping much more so on the left. And they're so focused in that Maxine Waters way of, my goal is to get Donald Trump impeached. They're so focused on the goal of removing Donald Trump from office or smearing him that they really just don't care about how they do it. BuzzFeed did a meta-analysis of liberal Facebook pages and found that during the election cycle, about 20% of their Facebook of posts were factually inaccurate in some significant, important way. And statistically biased conservative outlets tend to do worse, but the left has gained very, very rapidly all at once. So basically, leftist media outlets are getting super, super inaccurate. And Trump is just it's this fascinating self-fulfilling cycle. Trump disavowed the media for bias, which I think it's reasonable to say the media has a center-left bias across the board. Trump attacks the media, and then leftist bias outlets push back against him, say bad crap, perpetuate the cycle. When I say bad and inaccurate things, perpetuate the cycle. Then Trump attacks, the media overreacts, Trump attacks, and it's and then it all just ends in a GIF.
Yes, yeah. So. Let's get to the fun part of this.
Yeah.
The media
asshole solo.
overreaction. Yeah. So, well, not yet. Not yet. First, we have Trump tweeting out a GIF of his
back when he
illustrious
fought Vince
WWF,
McMahon.
Yeah, his WWF career. Which I don't know. I'm assuming I was watching professional wrestling at this time, but I don't remember
My
this.
parents
shit.
made me quit because apparently I had like anger problems with it. I don't know.
You have anger problems? I've only heard you yell twice in the 8 years I've known you. That's fine.
Probably didn't make me quit watching wrestling. That's what happened.
Just screaming and body slamming people in the house.
Damn it,
Off.
Ken Shamrock! You lock that ankle lock in.
All right. So he tweeted out a GIF that somebody made basically with Vince McMahon's face hidden behind the CNN logo, and he body slam. He doesn't even body. He just tackles him and he's punching him. It was goofy and ridiculous for a president to tweet something like that, but whatever.
It's modern day presidential.
Well, okay, so CNN digs in to this thing, and they find the Redditor who altered the original footage to put CNN over it. He didn't even make the GIF. He made the video that then somebody else made the GIF of that Trump found and then tweeted.
It's a team effort.
Yes, but the Redditor's name is Han Asshole Solo. It's pretty great. For some reason, every major news network has censored the asshole part because that means I don't understand it.
It's one word. I don't.
But anyway, yeah. So they call this guy and email him, leave him. I believe they said left him voicemails and an email. They don't actually speak to him.
The only people that leave voicemails are my old people. I think. Why do you leave? I'm sorry. It just bothers me when people leave me voicemails.
All right. Well, I appreciate the anecdote. So yeah,
I'm sorry.
He goes on Reddit and apologizes for all the stuff. I guess I should backtrack for a second because he's been posting for quite some time some disgustingly racist, anti-Semitic things, messages, whatever, all over Reddit. This is nothing new. I mean, you can go on Reddit right now and find 100 people in less than 5 minutes that all post this stuff. But they single this guy out, find out who he is, send him a message, and before they speak to him, he issues this apology, and then he calls them back. And they release a statement basically saying they wouldn't release the man's name because he issued an apology, blah blah blah. He's not going to do it again, but we reserve the right to release his name if things change. And this is where shit hit the fan for a second time for CNN because they just threatened to dox somebody for saying something they didn't like.
Yeah.
But now, yeah, I mean, but you have plenty of people out there saying this is freedom of the press, correct? Like the press should. This is newsworthy that this man is a racist, so they need to find him and out him to ruin his life for being a troll online. And this is something that needs to be talked about too. There's a difference between a racist and a troll online, because trolls are just trying to get attention. That doesn't necessarily mean they believe the bullshit that they're spewing. Or it's not that I'm not defending him either. I just can't stand the thought that CNN, you say something. I'm rambling at this point, but you have media outlets that are saying, well, you have all these people attacking us and trying to shut our free speech down, but then you say something against CNN or do something against a media outlet, then they're going to attack you and try to ruin your life for your freedom of speech.
I think
seems really hypocritical.
Yeah, I think that there's no one is good in this. This guy is an awful person who advocated for people being doxxed, having their information found, and people going to their homes. CNN is threatening to dox someone. I just finished watching a documentary where this guy doxed people. It's horrible.
But okay, just go. You go ahead.
Yeah, but I think that there is a distinct difference in the power advantage here. I've heard that this person is 15. I've also heard that they're 35. Whatever. They're just a person.
He's an adult.
Made a
he's
gift
not 15,
in CNN.
Just to clarify.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Cool. So he's past puberty in theory, so he should know what he's doing. But
we have a president past puberty that doesn't know what he's doing.
So there is a huge distinction between somebody on the internet with the veil of anonymity going, yeah, we should dox these people, versus a multi-billion-dollar media empire saying, hey, we're going to dox you if you do anything like this.
Well, they tried to say that they didn't threaten him. There was no threat involved, but you read the original statement, that's a threat to say we reserve, to finish the whole statement saying we're not going to release his name, but the CNN reserves the right to do so if things change. Basically, that's a threat. That's a threat.
Yeah, completely. No, I agree. It's 100% a threat. My issue with this, and I don't know the laws on posting people's personal information online. I don't know if that's legal or not. I'm uncomfortable with it. But for me, the issue is that this just smacks of hypocrisy all over for CNN, because you want to get out and you want to talk about the importance of free speech and the importance of the freedom of the press, and those things are very important. I'm a huge advocate for those things, to a point of hardlining. But you lose all credibility when you get up and you pound your chest and you say that you're going to stand up for these rights and you're going to stand up for freedom of expression, and then you silence someone's speech because they made a mean moving picture of a man hitting you or hitting a logo of you. I think it is absolutely absurd that they think that this is justified in any way.
Right. I mean, and it's that's the big thing too. He made it to post on this website, and Donald Trump just happens to find it filtered through a second party and then tweets it, and somehow it's his problem. I don't know. Yeah. I just find the whole thing ridiculous. But the big thing is they're trying to act like they didn't threaten this guy, and they most certainly threatened him.
Yeah, I think it would be a
they
little.
Claimed we didn't speak to him before he issued the apology, but you left him a voicemail and sent him an email. What was in those emails? You just said, "Hey, how you doing?" No, you said something. There's
really
a reason
didn't
he issued those.
that.
Yeah, there was whatever. He's not gonna say anything. He said he came out and said it. He was like, I didn't feel threatened at all. It's like, of course you did, because they're holding a gun to your head and saying smile and say you're safe.
You know who else said that? Otto Warmbier. Otto Warmbier said that. I'm not comparing the two situations, but I'm sure there was a degree of compulsion. Yeah, it's for me. This is such a bad PR move by CNN. I mean, they're already a joke news organization. Nobody takes them seriously anyway. Like when I look something up, I have like websites where I'm like, nope, and it's like Fox News, like, nah, I'm good. MSNBC, nah, I'm good. CNN, I'm good. And it's worse. There's like the bad reality show that Anderson Cooper sits behind a desk at. It's like Big Brother, but with a white-haired Anderson Cooper. And this is only, but on a serious note, this is only feeding any potential. I'm not saying that there are, but any potentially legitimate threats to journalism in the United States. If you are legitimately concerned that Donald Trump is going to somehow destroy the First Amendment and remove any freedom of the press in an effort to establish some sort of dictatorship, or make himself the next Erdogan, the way that you're going about this, lashing out at people, attacking to people, losing that sense of objectivity by labeling yourself the opposition or the resistance. Like, this isn't Vichy France, and you're not, Jean-Paul Sartre, Albert Camus. You are not resisting anything. And when you frame it this way, when you take stances so strongly like that, you are making things worse. You are feeding Donald Trump. You are feeding the people that support him, and you are fulfilling a prophecy written about you that these people want to be true.
Yeah. And having since both of us have watched it now, that Gawker documentary, I feel like plays hand in hand with this really well. I feel like that's something that should be watched. It's on Netflix.
Yeah, it's a really good documentary.
It's an interesting documentary. I wouldn't call it good because I was pretty pissed off the whole time, but yeah.
So my feelings change it for those of you who don't know. I guess Mom, the documentary is Nobody Speak, and it goes into the Hulk Hogan sex tape with
Speak
Gawker.
directly to your mother about the Hulk Hogan sex tape scandal documentary. Is that what you need?
I'm trying to keep up on current events now. It's really big for it's
Does your
important
mom
for her.
have Netflix? You let her
No,
use
she
yours?
actually doesn't have internet.
You gotta fix that.
I'm from a super small town. Anyway, but so it starts with the Hulk Hogan or Terry Bollea. Gawker releases a sex tape, and for those of you that don't know, I think Gawker's the worst thing on the internet. I hate Gawker. Ryan Holiday wrote a good book called "Trust Me, I'm Lying," where he rips Nick Denton apart. He destroys Gawker as a media organization, and I dislike them. But there's a part of me that's saying, okay, from a frustratingly hardline First Amendment perspective, like I can get the idea of sticking up for them. And then the whole thing, like 30 minutes into it, shifts gears towards this conspiracy theory that Peter Thiel and Donald Trump are colluding to destroy the freedom of the press. And I was like, good God, this is masquerading as a documentary.
I'm glad you called it that because it literally shifted. It shifted into like trying to make us be sympathetic towards these scumbags that are trying to claim it's newsworthy to post someone's private sex tape, and then it's like, well, the rich people are buying media outlets at an alarming rate. It's like, where the fuck have you been? This isn't news.
It's literally how media works.
It's literally how it's worked since forever. Stop.
But what I think my favorite part of it, two favorite parts. One, that cringeworthy montage at the end where like all the journalists talk and there's that beautiful yes, oh my God, it
playing
was
like
so
the
bad.
Star Spangled Banner in the background, like we are
like
what's
Jimi
gonna
Hendrix's
stop
version.
this. They're just like, yeah, and keep in mind, just like, yeah, and we work for good news organizations that are owned by liberal billionaires and not these conservative people.
Different.
It's so different.
Yeah.
They let me write articles I want to write.
I don't have to
We all
source.
quit in protest. Okay, cool. Good for you. That's good. Good for you.
That's
Did you
awesome.
start
So
on-
instead of sticking around and trying to help the newspaper that you dedicated your life to not become something you don't want it to be, you decided to quit. That's awesome.
Appreciate
But
it.
the other thing that bothered me about it was Nick Denton. And I feel like Nick Denton is almost like calling Peter Thiel and Uncle Tom in this. So Nick Denton, one of the major points behind the documentary is that, and I'm so happy we're talking about this. I wanted to talk about it for 3 weeks.
I know. That's why I brought it up. I wanted to let you get this out.
I've got so much steam built up over it. So the theory that Nick Denton proffers is that a few years ago, Nick Denton published an article with Gawker saying that Peter Thiel was gay. And Peter Thiel took offense to this. Whether or not he is gay remains unknown. It's also none of our fucking business. But his justification was, well, I'm a gay man, and I think gay people need to be out in the open. And I'm like, well, I'm a lot of things. I mean, I'm not gay, but I'm a lot of things that and irrespective of whether or not they are socially accepted, I don't want that information out there in the world for just a bunch of random ass people to read. And so it just builds this entire theory that Peter Thiel has such a small ego and is so fragile as a human being that he decided to launch a multi-billion-dollar lawsuit against Gawker and fund Hulk Hogan's lawsuit. And it's ridiculous. And like it's like partway through when they got into the complexities of the sex tape of, who does the property belong to? If Terry Bollea knew he was being filmed and consented to it and someone else owned the property and they gave it up voluntarily, it does bring up a lot of legal and ethical questions. And I thought it was really compelling. And then it shifted gears and I was like, I'm watching a conspiracy theory documentary is what I'm watching right now. And I was really sitting on the fence about the whole thing until that stupid montage at the end. And I was like, first of all,
What about-
I've got goosebumps. This is amazing. And that throws up a red flag for me.
What about when they tried to claim that the reason he was really suing was because there was a second sex tape in which he uses vulgar racist slurs, and he was suing to protect? I was just like, the fuck does that have to do with anything? You're literally just grasping at straws to try to make yourselves look good and make him look bad when you're the one that took a sex tape and posted online. I mean, I don't know. I have a completely different thing. Even if you knew you were being filmed, it was clearly not meant for to be leaked online by a news organization. I'm using air quotes in case anybody, because I know nobody can see it. But because Gawker is a joke. But yeah, it's a private video. Like you take home videos, you don't make them to be distributed online. That's not what they're made for. So I mean, it's complex. Like I'm not disagreeing with what you're saying.
Yeah.
I don't agree that just because you knew a video was being taped that it's okay for somebody to just let it go out into the world.
Yeah, one of my questions about this is, I mean, this was a civil suit. This wasn't a legal suit. This wasn't the government saying, no, Gawker, you can't do this. This was a civil court with a jury trial saying, was this newsworthy? Is there legitimate cause to publish this? And I don't think this will come as a surprise to anyone, but I'm not an attorney. As someone who's not an attorney, really, carry on. Give us your legal opinion, not Attorney Anderson. But it brings up questions of, oh, well, great, they made this decision in a civil lawsuit. Does that have a damn thing to do with the freedom of the press with regards to the Constitution or any laws? Like, it's not like the Supreme Court did this and now it's the law of the land and we all have to adhere to it. It was a civil case. And I mean, this is what civil court exists for. It reminds me very much of an interview that Nick Gillespie gave. I think maybe it was with Larry King. I can't remember, but it was in reference to the bailout. And in the interview, he said, well, I don't think these people should be prosecuted. It's not a crime to lie to somebody. He's like, that's what civil court is for. It's not the law. It's do people in civil society think that this was wrong as opposed to, what the law said. So that's the other question about this. I did get stirred by some of the First Amendment attorneys, and they were like, "This is a threat." And then I was like, "This is also civil court. How much of a threat can civil court be to the constitutional protections that we have in journalism?"
Much a threat as Netflix wants it to be. Deal with it. All right. I'm gonna nip this conversation in the bud.
Yeah, I'm starting to sweat. God, I'm hot about this.
40-minute rabbit hole on a document. Maybe we should start. Maybe we should start finding documentaries to just have special episodes on.
Oh, dude, I just watched one called "Welcome to Leith" about where a bunch of white supremacists move in.
We'll talk about this later. We need to move on to subject number 2 before 8:00 tonight. All right, so we have. This is another one from last week. The Department of Justice sent out letters to all 50 states. Basically informing them that they're reviewing voter registration list maintenance procedures. Essentially, what they're asking for how states plan to remove voters from their rolls. They also asked for voter data, sweeping voter data, first and last names, middle initials, middle names, addresses, date of birth, party affiliations, last 4 digits of your social, voter history from 2006 onward, felony convictions, everything. It's basically saying this is an effort to purge voter rolls, saying under the guise of voter fraud is what it seems like. Since last week, all 50 states have denied the Department of Justice this information.
Yeah.
No.
It just seems so ridiculous. I mean, the guy that's leading this, Chris Kobach, he's a huge voter fraud theorist, I guess, conspiracy theorist. I mean, yeah, technically there is voter fraud in like 0.00001% of circumstances. Like, they have taken voter fraud cases to court, and I think states like Kansas, and they took 9 to court, and like 1 actually got a conviction or something like that. It's ridiculous, and for me, this is just dragging this administration and the Republican brand's name through the mud, because whether or not the explicit, and I'll give them benefit of the doubt for a minute, whether or not the explicit goal of this is to disenfranchise minority voters, that is going to be the end result. Statistically, efforts like this disproportionately affect minority, generally Democratic voters. And whether or not that is the goal, that's probably going to be the end result if they're able to go through with any sort of voter fraud legislation or regulations or something like that. And you're just
Now,
going to purge people out of the voter rolls.
Yeah, how does this, just for the sake of hearing, how does this do that? Because it purges them and then they just don't register.
It's kind of like so with the voter ID requirements, these things proportionately affect minorities in the United States when you have to go there with like a driver's license or something like that. I'm not sure the reasoning, but apparently statistically, when you look at states that have like photo ID voter requirements, you need a government ID to do it. The people that have been largely hit in places where they have enacted this have been, I think it's specifically Black Americans and people that vote Democratic. I think just correlation doesn't equal causation there. But if that trend holds true, it looks like most likely that would be the case if you're trying to purge voter rolls. And honestly, not to put Descartes for the horse, I can see that if they attempt to put something like this through of purging the voter rolls, it wouldn't go through in a vacuum. It would go through with these are the new requirements. If you were incorrectly purged from the voter rolls, to be put back on the voter rolls, and it will be a rigorous process by which to do that.
Oh, okay. Yeah,
that's just my prediction. The second part, that's just like me speculating out of my ass.
Wow. It's kind of, that's all we can really do now because all 50 states have denied them. So unless they're going to try to push this through. But, I mean, case in point, it seems like they asked for the individual states' plans on how they are going to purge voters from the voter rolls, and then they asked for information, I assume, to find fraudulent voters, registered voters, to then inform the state that they need to purge them from the rolls. I don't know if that's what they were doing.
Yeah, I mean,
at this, that's the only thing I think.
But some of this information for me, it bothers me, the volume of information. First of all, I mean, the point of the election system that we have is that you don't have a federal, nationwide, universal election system. That makes it very difficult to hack and very difficult to commit fraud. But some of the questions, some of the information that they're asking seems very bothersome to me. I mean, like, I can get like the date of birth, address. I mean, like, like when I go to vote, I have to verify my address and stuff like that. Which, as a quick sidebar, I could just also know someone else's address. But whatever, I'm not saying voter fraud's a real thing. But I mean, political party. I mean, last word is just a social voter history. I mean, military history, active, inactive status. Those things really bother me.
They also want like overseas citizen information.
Yeah. I just think it was funny that Steve Bannon was registered to vote in 2 states.
That bastard. All right.
All right. Anyway, moving on.
Yeah. Let's not. Yeah. Unless you
Much
have a
less exciting.
You have a
than
documentary
CNN.
on this we can talk about for 15 minutes.
I bet I can find one. I bet you I can find one.
All right. Well, you work on that. Let's get into the G20 Summit. This is a long one too. Let's just start. His first stop was in Trump's first stop was in Warsaw, where he gave a speech where he essentially, I'm not going to be as vulgar as we are in these notes. He praised the Polish people for a number of things, like being Christian, fighting off communism, buying weapons. I don't know what else. Being kind of racist. I don't really know.
Yeah, for those of you that listened to the episode where we talked about Poland, Poland doesn't like people that aren't ethnically Polish. And so I mean, it's funny. He goes on in the speech and he talks about the threats that the West is going to face. And we've said on here numerous times, and I think we touched on this before, a lot of other media outlets did. So tune into the Armchair Constituents for weekly breaking news that people on the alt-right are, and moreover, these more right-wing populist groups are using the coded language of the West. What they really mean is, traditional Judeo-Christian, generally ethnically white values. In the same way that the term states' rights has been entirely co-opted, the term has been entirely destroyed due to massive resistance and things like that in the South during the Civil Rights era. The term Western civilization or the West or Western values has been co-opted as well, and he's talking about the threats that we're facing from the West from Islamic extremists. He doesn't say Islamic; he just says terrorism, which is really funny. Just again, even though we talked about it before, Poland is 98% ethnically Polish. They generally have relatively the same religion. There's no real ethnic makeup of anything. There's like 40,000 Muslims in like all of Poland. In the same way they had anti-Semitism without Jews, they have, and I hate the word Islamophobia, but they have Islamophobia without Muslims. They're scared of a thing that's like just not there. And then they bought a bunch of Patriot missiles from the United States, and we were all happy. I will say the one part of this speech that I did like is that he politely asked Russia to please stop supporting Iran and Syria, and that was cool.
Yeah, I also called for them to. He spoke out against their actions in the Ukraine.
Yeah,
I think that's basically it.
Yeah, I mean, that
was like the wrap up at the end. He like threw that in there, like maybe Putin won't listen this far.
Yeah, I mean, everybody's super wound up about this, and I've heard it from.
We have people saying, his defining speech. This
really
is what's going to define his presidency.
Yeah, I mean, it just reminded me of the speech that he gave when the Romanian president showed up at the Rose Garden right after Comey testified, and it just sounds like the exact same thing. I mean, we aren't really hearing anything new. He just said the West 11 times, because I did a Control F search at the text of the speech, referencing
our tactics.
But referencing the West as a region. Although one time he did use it directionally, like, hey, they came from the West. But there's nothing new in here. Like, I know a lot of people are super upset about this speech, about how nationalistic it was. It was nationalistic to Poland. Like, we aren't going to make Poland any more nationalistic than it already is. We can't undo that thing. We can't roll democracy out in Iraq, and we can't by going in and giving a speech. It wasn't. I don't feel like it was anything new or anything exciting. It's exactly what you expected. You're in friendly territory where, these people don't dislike Donald Trump. I mean, they're nationalists too. They don't like terrorism. I mean, nobody really likes terrorism except like the IRA and ISIS and stuff. But they don't like terrorism, and they're pretty ethnically and religiously homogenous. So he's unfriendly territory. So you don't think he's gonna say something, but it just wasn't anything new.
Basically, what I got from it. It was an interesting read, though. Nice little history lesson. But
I love that. Like, every time he stops a paragraph, there's like chanting Donald Trump, Donald Trump.
It's better is when you read the transcript and they're like, and this is what the crowd's doing. Applause, chanting Donald
Man
Trump.
picks his nose.
Anyway, okay, so left Warsaw goes. Now we're in Hamburg. I almost said Hamburg. Hamburg, where the summit is, where there's mass protests, thousands of people. I read something about Greenpeace. Is that what it was? Does that make sense? They're an activist organization, correct?
Yeah. They protested like the Great Barrier Reef destruction and crap.
I don't know if it was Greenpeace because I don't have it in front of me and I'm not gonna say it. But a activist organization tried to take a boat up to the building where the summit was, and they got close enough and then jumped in the water to try to swim to the building. I don't know the layout or what the purpose was, but they got stopped by police. But I mean, you hear about all these violent protests, mass protesters dressed in black, throwing Molotov cocktails all over cars. Currently there's like 150, 160 police officers injured, 70 arrests. There's 14 protesters that are injured. I saw a video of people being sprayed with like multiple bottles of mace on one person.
Oh, that girl on the armored personnel carrier.
And they're using those like crowd control hoses and like spraying groups of like 2 or 3 people, and they just go flying across the field. I saw an armored police officer standing over somebody on the ground, punching them in the face. And I'm not even really speaking out against the cops here, because it seems like chaos on both sides. Merkel came out against this.
You know who was there from the U.S.?
Everyone?
Bill de Blasio. New York City's mayor was there.
Makes sense. He's got to be there just
in
case.
He got a lot of flack because he skipped a cop's funeral to go to this protest. But I just think it's weird. Normally, the people that I think about protesting the G20 are the type of people that think the Earth is flat and or hollow. that Bilderberg exists, and that having a functional economy is bad.
Well, they were trying. I mean, a lot of it seemed like the plan was to block it. I mean, you had people coming out against Theresa May because she I don't know if she made the comment, but she said climate change wasn't on her top priorities to speak about at the summit.
Oh yeah, and she was accused of like dereliction of duty. Like, it's dumb to say, but Jesus Christ.
Yeah, I mean, I saw stuff about Trump finally shook hands with Merkel, who then condemned him in her one of her speeches about the whole climate change, climate agreement, Paris Accords, yada yada yada. That's the big thing was the protest. That just seemed absurd. Mainly the stuff I read about these mass protesters. People were like, one woman had a comment on The Guardian saying she was putting her kid in the car, and they just came down the street and started throwing cocktails onto cars, and she pulled the kid out and went inside, but her car was on fire. So they were just lighting people's cars on fire to protest. I don't know. I don't understand that kind of protesting. You just look fucking ridiculous, and you're completely slurring the message into something else.
That's a little insane. Like, what are we gonna do? All right, I'm gonna throw out a definition for you here, and you tell me if the word I'm defining is terrorism or G20 protest. We're gonna use violence against civilians to get across a political message.
If you have to put a mask on to go do it, it's probably a crime. Just
unless it's trick or treating, which is perfectly legal, at least in America.
Listen, don't come to my house and ask for candy. But yeah, I mean,
also,
if
I
you
have
put
the
a mask on, I mean,
laugh.
you have protests right now in the United States about Civil War statues, and you have Klan members going to the protest, and they have their hoods up. They're showing their face because they're not doing anything violent. But if you have to put a mask on, and I'm not defending Klan members or Civil War statues, but if you have to put a mask over your face because you don't want people to know who you are, you're probably not doing anything good or constructive.
Yeah. I will defend Civil War statues, but hate the Klan. So I'll take a firm position on that one.
Yeah, I don't know.
We don't have time for that. We can't get into that one right now.
We don't need them in squares. We can put them in museums. We don't. This easy. All right. So, God, this is still the same thing. He met with Putin, which is interesting. He asked him, apparently, straightforwardly, did you tamper with the elections? And then Putin said no, and Trump is now ready to move on. He's clear.
Whew. Thank God. I was worried there, Vlad.
The problem. We can stop wasting our time. Putin had nothing to do with it. It's time for constructive relationships with the Russians because they're good people.
Guys, he's a real straight shooter. I talked with him, and he looked me square in the eye, and you know what? I believe him.
Yeah, well, I mean, Tillerson said they had very clear positive chemistry. So it's looking good.
I think it's a tender match.
Yeah, it is. I mean, basically, we can have a night. I mean, it's a little cold in the winter in New York, but I'm sure Trump Tower could accommodate the wedding. But yeah, they had talks on counterterrorism and cybercrime, which I find interesting because there's a whole. Didn't we talk about it on here about the whole thing with Russians and their little government paid hackers that they have on retainer? It's fucking ridiculous. And then the big thing was the ceasefire agreement for southwest Syria, just the southwest of Syria. There's a ceasefire, so basically to let the rebels fight ISIS without having to fight the government. The big thing from this, I mean, that's basically it. Nothing else has really changed. The U.S. still wants the Assad regime out. Russia's still supporting that regime. There's just a ceasefire that apparently the Syrian government's agreed to as well. But there is nothing in place to actually make sure that they're doing it or enforcing it. So
yeah, I mean, as of this morning, because I think while it was established Friday, it went into effect on Sunday morning, and posting this morning.
It's a quick turnaround.
And nothing's, nothing is. Nothing's. Nobody's been killed as far as I know that wasn't supposed to be. I still think this is just an effort. This is going to be the first step in carving up Syria. I think Syria.
But I mean, do you actually think that this ceasefire is going to stay? Like they're not going to not do it. They're just So this is the first day. We don't know what's going on over there.
It's still novel in the afterglow of Christmas or something. Yeah. I mean, I personally think what'll happen with this is the first step in carving Syria up. It starts with the Southwest, and it's the state of Syria as we know it. The physical borders may as well not exist anymore. And right now, this is how do you calm down a little bit and have some type of stability. So, the Jordanians control a little bit in the south. They protect Israel. The U.S. is happy. Russia gets a little bit of the northeast, and maybe the Syrian Free Army or something controls another portion, but just something to ease a little bit of stability. So long as Russia's geographical border is a little more secure, and nobody's right up next to Israel, and probably everybody will be a little more evened out. I don't know. This will be interesting to see where it continues to develop. I mean, it's odd. Iraq is, saying that the caliphate is dead. Mosul has been largely liberated entirely, and basically that the Islamic State's on its last legs with regards to its physical strongholds and bases of operation.
Are they still controlling a city in the Philippines as well as Africa? Aren't they controlling a city in Africa too?
Yeah, they're moving. They are rapidly moving into Africa. I mean, there was a report by was put out by U.S. SOCOM. I think it was U.S. SOCOM that basically said Africa's going to shape up to be a much more dangerous Middle East.
Right. See, that's what I don't get, because every time you look into it, you have these level-headed reports of them like, "Whoa, they're on their heels. It's almost over," and you're just like, "Bullshit! It's not," because that doesn't make sense. All right, well, Discord servers shit the bed on us midway through that conversation, so that's lost. Wherever we were, we don't remember. We're just gonna move into the next topic, which is Charlie Gard.
Super lighthearted stuff.
Yeah. Oh, this is great. This is exactly, we talk about this kind of stuff all the time, right? This deeply complicated situations. And us being these prominent professionals on the matters, that we can just talk about it. I don't know. This is awkward.
It really is. This is a really unfortunate story all the way around.
Yeah. Okay. So, those of you that don't know what it is, Charlie Gard is an 11-month-old boy with a neurodegenerative disorder. Its acronym is MDDS, mitochondrial DNA depletion syndrome. The little bit I've looked into it, it's terrible, and there's really no cure. He can't move on his own. He can't breathe on his own. He's on a breathing tube. He's suffering from epileptic seizures. He has severe brain damage that's irreversible, and I mean, the hospital essentially wants him to die. The hospital is the Great Ormond Street Hospital. Is it in London?
I think so. I can check real quick.
But it's in the UK, to say the least. I think it's in London. But I mean, it's a prominent children's hospital in the UK. Basically, they're just saying that there's nothing they could do, and the child, I don't want to say needs to die, but the child's dying. They're just trying to they want to remove life support, stuff like that. The parents are seeking an experimental therapy that's done at Columbia University. They've crowdsourced the funding, but the hospital's refusing to release their child to be taken overseas. You also have the Pope in on this. The hospital at the Vatican is offered to take him in free of charge. I'm kind of getting ahead of myself, but you also, the doctors at Columbia University offered to send the medicine overseas to be administered there. This is just, and keep in mind, this is a completely experimental therapy that the doctors at the hospital say isn't going to help the child, and even the doctors in the United States are saying it's very unlikely it'll do anything. It's it's really sad. The big thing we're trying to touch on here is why should the hospital be allowed to keep this child against their parents' wishes and deny them the ability to try every last option? Which I can't agree with it. And you have a lot of anti-abortion and religious pro-life organizations coming out in droves, which is fine. I'm not going out against them and their beliefs now, but I don't know. I just find this kind of stuff, to me, disgusting.
Yeah, I mean,
if I was in this situation and a hospital was trying to tell me I can't try something, try to give one last shot, I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of the conversations that I've had with people revolving around this, they boil it down to, this is socialized medicine right here. This is what you get, and I find that incredibly frustrating. But it does, bring up the interesting question: at what point does the state have a right or a role to play with regard to saying no, you don't get to do that? I mean, the big difference, I guess, with regards to this very extreme circumstance we're looking at is a hospital in the UK saying you can't take your child, whereas in the United States we have a significantly greater amount of freedom. We have the opposite problem, where a parent can choose to not give their child medical treatment that they need because it's their parental right to. Obviously, what's going on with Charlie Gard is a gross overstepping of the state. I mean, it's not going to cost the state any money to do anything. They raised almost $2 million privately. The materials and the medicine have been offered to be flown out there. Everyone is saying that this child won't be a burden on the state at all, and that's your justification. Is, well, the state can't justify doing this. And I think this is a gross violation of
and you have
medical practice, the Hippocratic Oath.
You have lawmakers. You have lawmakers in the U.S. basically proposing bills to offer this family permanent residence to come here. And also, I believe, where did I hear this? I think it was the Philip DeFranco show. He made a comment about how they also have tried to take the child home to be cared for in home. I guess to die. He said die with dignity, but it's also going to court. So I don't know if this is actually true, but the hospital denied them the ability to take the child home as well. I don't know if they cited this, but it seemed to be almost like they figured that they would just try to take the kid to the United States after they got him out of the hospital. But
I mean,
I agree with you. This is they're overstepping their bounds trying to tell these parents. And you made the comment before about like stopping like somebody with like crazy beliefs, like basically taking a kid home to pray the disease away, I guess. But I mean, they're trying to seek a therapy that may give their child some quality of life. It may not, but what's the alternative? Letting him die in the hospital?
Literally, it costs the UK nothing. And I understand, and again, this is the try to understand why someone would think the position that seems to a degree undefensible that the hospital is taking, and that it's okay, well, the statistical likelihood of it working is very small. You may just cause the child more trauma or more pain. But I mean, as you and I talked about before we got on, you can, in theory, sedate the child so that they might be able to, be flown to the U.S. or have a procedure done to them into the United Kingdom. I just find it to me, it just seems unconscionable. I understand it's a United States, thing. Parental rights supersede a lot in the United States, and to me it is very alien that something like this could ever occur. I mean, we still argue on whether or not unvaccinated kids should be able to go to public school. Like we believe in that. We believe that much in parental autonomy, that something like that is so alien to us. And I mean, I beat around the bush on it. I mean, I do think there are legitimate circumstances where the state has a role, and I wouldn't say the state, where hospitals have a role to step in and go, no, we aren't doing that. No, you have to do this. But this is just so ridiculous.
You bring that up that you brought up the vaccination thing, because it was this week or last week France passed a law saying that vaccines were mandatory. So parents, you can't opt out of them anymore. The child is born, and they get vaccinated. So it seems that to us it is alien that the state or the hospital in this case can supersede the rights of the parents, whereas it's the complete opposite in the United States.
Yeah.
So it's hard for us to not be biased in this situation because it's just very foreign to us.
Yeah, and the saddest part about it is, it's just like you touched on in the beginning, the likelihood of this type of therapy succeeding is so slim. It's almost like arguing for, just arguing for hope sounds, a little anemic, but, just for the right to be able to do so, on the whim that something like this works.
They're going to trial over this. I'd say trial. They're going to court over this soon. Very soon. I don't know if I had the date or not, but so I'm sure we'll touch on it again, even just briefly. But so let's get into the last topic, which is Betsy DeVos.
You almost got it.
Davos. What is her name?
Betsy
what is this one? All right, I did get it.
So did you ever see the video of everyone booing her at the graduation and like standing up and turning their backs to her? Very uncomfortable.
I believe it. But okay, well, she's being sued. So back to the actual topic. She's being sued by 18 states and the District of Columbia for delaying regulations to protect federal loan borrowers defrauded by their schools. Federal student loan borrowers defrauded by their schools. It's being led by Massachusetts. I had the whole list of states, but it doesn't matter. It's a lot of states. It was all blue states essentially, because it was all they seemed to, everything I read seemed to want to say that these were all Democratic district attorneys that were signing on for this lawsuit. But essentially, these regulations they're Obama era rules that were put in place. They were supposed to go into effect July 1st, 2017. It's called the Borrower Defensive Repayment Rules. It's basically sought to make it easier for defrauded borrowers to seek debt forgiveness. And it also stops these for-profit, or it doesn't say for-profit, these colleges, but it's essentially to go against for-profit schools. Stops them from requiring students to resolve complaints against their school through arbitration rather than in court. The administration's delaying these rules, citing a legal challenge by a California association representing for-profit schools. Also, DeVos said something about this regulations put taxpayers on the hook, so that's bad, which it is, but still. That's their excuse. Keep in mind though, the Congress had a slew of rules that Obama era rules and regulations that they axed during the review resolutions earlier this year, and they chose not to axe this. So they could have gotten rid of it, but they didn't, and now they're just not following through with what should have gone into effect 8 days ago.
Yeah, I don't know how I feel about this lawsuit. I mean, I see the practicality behind having this type of regulation. I mean, for-profit schools are, notoriously negligent and it can be atrocious. I mean, look at Trump University, for instance. We all know that was a stand-up educational institution. Part of me thinks this, just when I hear about all these blue states suing, I just think resistance. It just pops up into my head over and over again. Like, you would not be making this much. I'm going to use the phrase "make hay" for about the 83rd time this podcast. You would not be making this much hay of everything if it weren't Donald Trump. And I legitimately feel that. Like, I think it's good for individual states to, say like, "Hey, we need this thing." Part of it is, I don't think her reasoning is bad. Hey, look, there is a legal challenge going on now that can affect this. We should wait. Now, are her motives potentially bad? Oh, maybe. Yeah, it's Betsy DeVos. They're probably bad. But the actual reasoning that she puts forth isn't bad. There's a legal challenge to these proceedings. We should hold off until this legal challenge resolves itself. You know, it just reeks of Rachel Maddow supporting it.
It's shitty on both sides. It's
Yeah.
Like I get what you're saying. They wouldn't go after this if Hillary was in office. Keep in mind though, this would probably go through if Hillary was in office. But just for argument's sake, if something else was some other rule they were delaying, these states wouldn't make the deal about it. But I don't know. DeVos is just absolutely awful in every sense of the word. She doesn't get enough flack. She has to do something. Her and Ben Carson need to just be shit on constantly. I don't mean literally. Or CNN tries to accuse me of violence towards something, but yeah,
we're gonna dox you. This episode has just been full of wow, no one on either side of this is good, and that's just slowly what it's becoming. Is like there's still this knee-jerk part of you that wants to root for a team.
Newsflash, Kramer: there is no good side. This is very much shades of gray. He's got
Jeff, I need an empire and a rebel alliance, and the sooner I pick my side, the better I feel about myself because I know the people that disagree with me are the baddies.
Listen. The Emperor was just trying to unify the galaxy under a single... He was trying to bring peace. He was trying to bring peace through unification.
And here comes this young boy who gets caught up in an ancient religion committing acts of domestic terrorism. All Palpatine was trying to do.
He also kissed his sister. I'm just saying that should be out. Everybody should know that before they just follow this pervert just blindly through everything. He also... spoilers, just runs off to hide on an island 20 years later. So he's not a strong leader. Just saying.
I feel like we should have an alternate podcast where we're like the Empire's version of NPR. Or just like Empire Propaganda Radio or something.
Stop suggesting more podcasts. We barely can put this together. And
okay, look, we have one really, really crappy episode that we won't ever release, and you think it's all going to shit.
Yeah, that was a terrible episode. But keep in mind, every one of these episodes is essentially slapped together 2 days beforehand. So
we started talking a little bit more. But if you look really close, what you'll see is a smooth transition into This Week in Trump.
Yeah, Twit. Which we also need to rename it. We need to rename it. So tweet at us any kind of any suggestion for what we can name this hodgepodge of administrative bullshit.
I want to call it Twist This Week in Stupid Things. We'll see how it goes.
I think we should just keep Twit and call it This Week is Terrible.
There's also that. There's also an option.
Fully negative at the end of every episode.
What happened? I stubbed my toe.
This rambling needs to stop. Ivanka Trump sits in for her father at the G20 Summit leaders meeting because she has the leadership and government experience to do so, and that's her job as the foremost authority on these matters is to sit in for our president. This fucking joke. I just don't understand how you put your daughter in these positions. She is a fashion designer, and what? It doesn't make any sense.
When we sit down and have dinner later, I'll give him the Cliff Notes version. Everything will be cool.
I mean, maybe she's brilliant, and she doesn't need political experience. But I just can't. You couldn't find anybody else to sit in. And of course, you have Merkel defending her. Whatever. Fucking stupid. I don't really like Merkel either. I don't understand why she's so well liked. Whatever. Let's why don't you hit the next one? That's yours.
I love this. So Mike Pence was touring a NASA facility, and they had there's a piece of very important NASA equipment with a sign that says "Do not touch on it," and he's just like, full 5-star, every inch of his hand. Just, I need to touch it. And it just makes me think of Arrested Development. No touching. It was literally like when you say to a child, like, don't touch that. Like, immediately like, oh, son of a bitch, I need to touch that so bad. His face, he had like the most gratifying face. Like, oh, it was totally worth it to this.
All right. So, in a comment this week, which if you hadn't told me who said it, I would have just told you Ben Carson said it. But Kellyanne Conway, I believe it was an interview on ABC. I don't remember. She said those that are losing Medicaid, on Medicaid that are losing insurance, they should just get a job. If they're able-bodied and they're on Medicaid, they should just get a job and they can get insurance like everybody else. Just showing how out of touch she is when the statistics say that those on Medicaid that are able-bodied do have jobs, but their jobs don't offer health insurance. Those low-paying jobs don't offer health. I don't know. It's just,
this sounds like a Stephen Colbert. This sounds like something that Colbert would have said playing Colbert on the Colbert Report.
Yeah, exactly, because we have people in these positions. Granted, Conway is fucking useless.
Calling Conway a person is a little bit of a stretch. I think she may actually be one of those lizard things.
She looks like she's at least 70% plastic. But regardless, it's just so out of touch. Like, the reason these people have Medicaid is because they're too lazy to get a job. So we're just going to take their Medicaid away and they'll suddenly be fine and they can just go get jobs.
If you don't give people the proper incentives, they'll never learn to bootstrap themselves.
Everyone out in the streets, we're going to have a purge to get homes. You want a home? You kill everyone to win that home. That's these fucking morons. Just stop putting them on TV. I'm kind of starting to understand why Trump wants to shut down press conference. Just no more press. Just read my tweets.
You get all the information you need there.
All right.
Speaking of out-of-touch people.
Yeah, we had Chris Christie. This is last week. He ordered a government shutdown. Shut down state parks and beaches leading into the 4th of July weekend. So all the Jersey beaches and state parks were shut down. And then he took a helicopter up the coast to I'm assuming it was some property that the governor owns, part of the perks, and he had his whole family out on essentially it was a private beach. It's a public beach, but no one else was allowed on it. So he had his family out on the beach. And then of course he got shit for it. And he basically, they were saying, isn't it unfair that you shut down all the beaches the 4th of July weekend and then you take your family out on the beach? And his response was, well, you should just become governor and then you can do that too. They also
That's
asked
inspiring.
him,
hey, you become an astronaut and take that flag off the moon.
They also asked him if he got any sun, and his response was, no, I was wearing a baseball hat. So, yeah.
I also only have matter on the front part of my body.
I love the pictures. He's just wearing those tiny little shorts and sandals in that little beach chair that he squeezed into. The biggest thing to note from this is the man only has 6 months left in office. He's virtually hated by every constituent in that entire state. He's at like a 15% approval rating. So they're just going to rally
and elect Bruce Springsteen. That's all they're going to do.
He's just on borrowed time. Yeah, let's not put Bruce Springsteen in any kind of office.
Whoa! No. Sorry.
So the last thing we have is from the meeting with Putin and Trump. They were media's taking pictures. Putin leans over. You can watch this clip online. He leans over and asks Trump, "These are the ones that insulted you." To which Trump nods and goes, "Yeah." he says something else that's indiscernible, and then he's like, "Yeah, you got that right." So I guess this is part of that positive chemistry, because I mean, they have this in common. Trump dislikes the media. Putin murders journalists that say stuff negative about him. So they see eye to eye on this matter.
Potato, tomato, two very, very similar things.
But yeah, so there's that, and that is the end of this week's episode. I get to
the past couple weeks have been rough. We had
to go
we had the
edit
abandoned episode. We had the server die on this one.
Yeah, it's just like 30 minutes of talking. I got to figure out exactly how much rambling the two of us were doing before the server cut. So that'll be fun. But yeah, follow us on Facebook, Twitter, review us on iTunes or Google Play. Read our article. Second article will be out soon. And yeah, ish. We will talk to you guys next week.
Bye.